Welcome into the Engage Jeffco Podcast, where we share the stories of the services and residents making a difference in our Jefferson County community. I'm Johnny Hart, and before we dive fully into this month's conversation, it's my pleasure to welcome in our newest team member, Carly Moore.
Johnny, it's so great to be here. I'm really excited to be part of the podcast. Of course, I love Colorado and been a Jefferson County resident for a long time, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you here, and I'm going to put you right on the spot. Carly, can you set up today's conversation that we have?
Absolutely. Today, we are chatting with Kerry, Wrenick, the Regional Homeless Coordinator for Jefferson County. We're going to take a look at what homelessness looks like today in our community, initiatives to protect those facing homelessness, especially during severe weather, and what the community can do to help.
Well, let's get into it. Here's our conversation with Kerry Wrenick. Joining us today in studio is Kerry Wrenick, the Regional Homeless Coordinator for Jefferson County. Thanks for chatting with us today, Kerry.
Thank you for the invitation.
So for our listeners who may not know, can you give us a rundown of the responsibilities of a regional homeless coordinator?
So I've been in the role for about 2 years. I think I'm celebrating my 2-year anniversary right now. So very exciting. When I came into the role, it was a bit of an adjustment from what it was previously focused on. And so my primary responsibility is bringing together our cities, our leaders to talk about big picture addressing homelessness and the nuances to that. And so we've been very fortunate in my time that we've met monthly with our city leaders and tackling the big issue that is homelessness.
So Heading Home's been an initiative with the county for like 2 decades now. Can you kind of talk about the initiative's mission and how tracking homelessness in Jefferson County has gone over the years?
Absolutely. Yeah, like you mentioned, Heading Home has been around, and there have been some really tremendous successes that have been derived from Heading Home. It is our, for lack of a better term, our community collaborative. So anyone and everyone who has an interest in homelessness, whether they work in that space, whether they have experienced homelessness themselves, we feel that lived experience is very important. Anyone is welcome to be a part of Heading Home. From Heading Home, we have launched our regional navigation model. So we have navigators across the county that focus on homelessness and outreach. And in my time, we've formalized Heading Home a little bit more, because what I learned in my first few months is that there's a bit of a disconnect between those that are doing the work, boots on the ground, to those that are the decision makers. And so we formalize the structure a little bit to make sure that those communication through lines are happening, and to ensure that our decision makers are aware of barriers that our frontline staff are encountering. So we've created a bit of a governance structure, again, going back to bringing our city leaders together, making sure that if and when barriers are happening, they're getting addressed and problem solved through that. So Heading Home continues to be our go-to entity with our work groups, our 15-year strategic plan coming out of that. Has a lot of pieces to Heading Home. We've built on the foundation over the last couple of decades.
And you talked a little bit about what has changed internally, how you guys are addressing the homelessness issue since you've been in your position. But on a general, broad sense, how has the homelessness community, the unsheltered community, changed in the last couple of years you've been in this role?
Yeah, data and data integrity have been a big focus. You know, through Heading Home, we have a lot of partners that collect the data, but we've been doing it at different levels and collecting different pieces of it. And so Heading Home has really helped us capture what data needs to be collected and then how we make decisions based on that. So those who are experiencing homelessness, are we seeing concentration areas? Are there a lack of resources in and around those areas? And so we're able to address some of that through Heading Home, just fine tuning what's being collected and what we're seeing and hearing.
When you talk about data collection, do you mean like those point in time counts? What does that look like? And how do you accomplish that data gathering when people are transient in a way? They're always on the move, and it's probably hard to gather all the numbers.
Yeah, we can't rely on one single source. That is for sure. So our point in time count is really important to our community. It is the one night in January where we go out and do a focused effort to count both sheltered and unsheltered count. That's one piece of it, one night, but we also look at kind of the longitudinal data as well. So what services are being accessed by individuals, and that can come from 211 data, that can come from our homeless management information system data. There's entry points throughout the year that we can collect that information. And then we also need to look at our school district data. That is the unseen inflow of homelessness. Jeffco Public Schools has positions that are dedicated to meeting the needs of students experiencing homelessness. And so we pull together lots of data sources to really help us create this picture of homelessness.
Can you give us maybe like a high level look at what homelessness looks like in Jefferson County and if it's, increased or decreased in the past couple of years?
Absolutely. So we try to look at a 5-year trend. What does it tell us? What changes are we seeing? So our most recent kind of 5-year trend shows us that Jefferson County continues to increase in homelessness. More specifically, between 2024-25, Jefferson County saw a 27% increase in homelessness. That was the largest increase across Denver Metro. And when we dig into that, what we're seeing is half or 1 in 2 of those that are experiencing homelessness are experiencing it for the first time. So that means we're not talking about that chronic population year over year. We're talking about people who have never experienced this and are finding themselves in a world that they don't know. How we respond to that, or the talking points that we say, are they aren't our savvy, know the ins and outs of the system. They are at a loss. And so that means we have to step up and offer services that they might not be accustomed to. And we need to be on the lookout for why this is happening. Why are people experiencing it for the first time? So, backtracking that eviction process and information, the job market, the housing affordability, all of those pieces that come into play when we're looking at our data. So yeah, Jeffco is definitely seeing an increase. We identified, I think it was about 1,150 last year. Half of that was our sheltered count and half of that was our unsheltered count. But those are changes that we'll talk about when it comes to severe weather response in a minute.
Yeah, I'd like to jump into that. I mean, you were asking the question why. I feel like that's the $1 million question, isn't it? Just, how can we kind of help people before they get to this point? But this is something you guys kind of had to be thrown into with the first of the season, the cold weather activation just a couple weeks ago. Can you kind of explain when you guys call for one of those and what's the criteria?
Mother Nature did not hear my cry for, can we just push it off a little bit? Can we just wait till after the first of the year? But she tested us through and through. But I am really excited this year because for the first time, our cities have come together and agreed that we need to do something collaborative regarding severe weather response. We're seeing the increases in the numbers of those experiencing homelessness and a decrease in our sheltering resources. So we have lost this year a couple of congregate shelters that were open during severe weather that are not available this year. So our city and county managers said, okay, well, what do we need to do to fill that gap? So we outlined the sheltering resources that we do have available or that we could expand upon, and then what the cost is associated with those. So we have a regional intergovernmental agreement that went into effect October 1st. So it has pool pooled together funding. It's pooled together our resources to make sure that anyone within Jefferson County can access the resources that we do have available. So our primary sheltering option this year is motels. We have very intentional and rewarding relationship with our motel partners. They have committed to sheltering our unhoused during severe weather. They are extremely good to work with. They're accommodating, they're kind. And so we're grateful for those motel partners, which makes available about 200 motel rooms per night of severe weather. So our severe weather gets activated at 32 degrees and moisture or 20 degrees and no moisture. And that is a notification that is sent out by public health. We leaned on public health beginning last year to help us make that decision. When is life safety becoming the real issue? And so public health sends out health alert notices, health alert advisories, depending on that threshold. So severe weather is 32 and 20 degrees, or extreme weather is 10 degrees when true risk of life and death happens. And so more resources are put forth when that extreme weather happens. And we have different responses when extreme weather occurs.
Obviously, this motel situation with the 200 rooms, I'm sure a lot of those who are in the unsheltered communities, like, why can't we just have this all year long? But it's truly the risk to health. Like, how dangerous can these conditions actually be? Frostbite, things like that is really detriment to health. I don't know if there's ever been, a really serious situation when it's been below freezing, like we get a lot during this time of year.
Yeah. Again, public health are such tremendous partners in that they provide to us ongoing data as it relates to emergency room visits. How many people are going into the emergency room due to health conditions of exposure, right? Frostbite, the list goes on and on. So we are tracking that. And we have that from last year that demonstrated when we went into a severe weather or extreme weather activation, we saw a significant decline in emergency room admittances. And so it showed that our efforts were paying off. Last year was also the first year across Denver Metro that we did not have a loss of life of an unsheltered individual due to cold weather exposure. So it really speaks to our regional efforts around addressing this. And we also know there isn't a perfect solution. And that's what's so hard when we're hearing from constituents about, I see this person out here who needs sheltering, or, why can't you do more? Why don't we have a shelter? I get it. And it's a really hard question to address. So while we're doing our best to offer motel rooms, what is the counter to that? That's going to draw people into Jeffco, right? Motel vouchering is a highly sought after resource. So are you bringing more people here? Are you meeting the needs of even our own? And how do you ensure that we are sheltering Jeffco? We rely on our navigators. They are the ones that know this population the most. They meet with them regularly, conducting the outreach. And so they have been truly the life-saving resource within our community to make sure that people have access to motel vouchers. And then we're asking them to also say yes to some and no to others. And that doesn't feel good. And so it's a hard balance to meet the need when resources are still very limited.
And you kind of talked about not everybody's going to be able to get a voucher, but you've established this severe weather after hours hotline. Can you talk about what that resource entails?
Yeah, we're excited. Again, our public health, they keep stepping up to the plate every time they're asked. They agreed to man a severe weather hotline that is activated only on days of severe or extreme weather and during those after hour timeframes. So when our navigators won't be able to be contacted. So they are available to answer the hotline and provide sheltering resources. It's not meant to be a motel voucher hotline. It is meant to be, where are you? What are your circumstances? Let me provide you to the resources that are in your area and assess your needs. Do you need help with transportation to get to that shelter? We can provide that. And so with this first stint of severe weather, we had some, little things to work out with the hotline, but those final days of activation, it was a smooth process and people were able to access that line. And we actually had our first call to the severe weather hotline was a tremendous success. If I could share that real quick.
Absolutely.
Again, it was set up to respond to the question, I've encountered somebody at 10 o'clock at night who needs sheltering. What can we offer? And so our first night of activation, we had an elderly lady who had just been released from a healthcare facility. She was already connected with navigators, had already been pre-vouchered for motel rooms, but because she was in this care facility, she wasn't able to get the motel voucher when they were out distributing them for this event. And so she called the hotline and the respondent was able to see on our pre-approved motel vouchering list her name was there. And so she was able to be connected directly with a motel room that night, even amidst the holiday weekend and all of that. And so it provided, again, a life-saving resource because she was released with additional medical needs, medical equipment, all of those things that if she hadn't had that hotline to call, she would have been out on the street with all of those necessity medical needs. So it was a really good feel-good moment for the folks that were responding to that line.
I wanted to go back. In May, the county hosted a forum on homelessness and kind of set up that intergovernmental agreement. How key is it to have the partners around the county and, even, nonprofit community partners and faith leaders to be able to lean on each other?
We can't do the work without all of them. We need everybody at the table optimizing the area that they exceed most in, right? And so the Spring Forum last May brought together our decision makers from across the county, our electeds, our city leaders, our county leaders, because we needed everybody to agree that we were committed to doing something together. We've tried this silo approach, especially in homelessness, for decades. And we know the best path forward is when we come together, when we are a collective. And so that Spring Forum got everyone to agree, yes, we are committed to doing something about this. And so the intergovernmental agreement came about, and we just the beginning of November brought together, at the request of our city and county managers, we brought together our faith leaders. And we're like, okay, now how does civic and faith partner to optimize, what the faith community can do and how the civic leaders can push those pieces forward. And so it was really a wonderful blending of resources on that day, especially around severe weather. But our city leaders can determine the path forward with faith because each community is unique and will have different asks. And so our faith community has really stepped up and helped during the severe weather, but they're also asking, how do we keep it going? It is one by one, we're tackling these really pivotal groups that can help us solve this issue together.
Yeah, you're talking about how really sounds like stronger together, bringing in faith community, government, civic partners. So maybe people listening are wondering, well, how can I help? How can I be involved? And in what ways can a Jefferson County citizen get involved and help in this effort?
So I would say there's a couple of entry points. One, if you're interested, we have a community engagement work group through Heading Home, helping us spread the message of what homelessness is, who it impacts, and trying to get some of those kind of fact-driven pieces of information out there. So Heading Home is a great way to connect. Each of our cities and the county have identified a single point of contact for anybody in the faith community that wants to help and engage. And we know that having a single point of contact is really key when you're looking at a list of lots of contact information. So our cities have a single point of contact with regards to that. And then I would say, don't let the season be the only time that you volunteer. We need volunteers and involvement all year long. So we have so many organizations here in Jefferson County that do good work that require the volunteerism to sustain. So thinking about, the Action Center and Family Tree, your schools need volunteers like no other. And so there are so many ways to plug in through agency level work as well.
And before we get out of here, I wanted to see, Kerry, if you had any parting thoughts or anything that we missed.
Man, that's a loaded last question. Again, I just invite people to do research, to ask the hard questions. I welcome the hardest of questions. People who might have a negative view, negative perception of who it is that's experiencing homelessness, I welcome to sit down and have coffee and talk about that, because more than likely it is not the people that you expect. And I think that there needs to be a real awareness about the growing needs. And I think that we're going to see some hard times ahead of us. And I've always said that none of us are immune to it. Some of us have thicker safety nets than others. And so I ask for grace and awareness and asking of the hard questions to help inform our community.
Having that empathy in our community is so important. Obviously, the goal is to have no homelessness, but it's such a pleasure and privilege that we have people like you working to address the issue, because we still do. And I just wanted to thank you for your time and all of the work that you do.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks again to Kerry for joining us today to chat about homelessness in Jefferson County. What an important conversation to have, especially as we head into the coldest part of the year. If at any point during that conversation you were thinking, well, how can I help? Kerry said that the county is always looking for volunteers, especially for their point in time count. You can find more information at jeffco.us/headinghome.
Also, some quick information about the Severe Weather Hotline. It's open during activated days from 6 to 11 p.m. on weeknights and noon to 4 on weekdays and holidays. You just need to call 303-271-7511. And if you'd like to learn more, find resources on how to get involved, or share feedback, we'll include the links in the show notes. We also want to hear from you. Let us know any topics you'd like us to cover or people worth highlighting by reaching out on social media or the county website. Engage Jeffco is also a monthly newsletter, and you can subscribe using the link in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and share it with someone who might appreciate the conversation.
Thanks again for listening.
Take care and keep looking out for one another, Jeffco.